There comes a moment in every leader's life when questions have to stop. Not because you received every answer, not because everything suddenly makes sense to you, not because all the pain has disappeared, but because you cannot spend your life looking backwards and still move forward. You see, at some point, you have to stop replaying what happened, stop reliving what was lost, stop revisiting what should have been, and stop waiting for life to be perfect and decide I'm moving forward. Not because I have all the answers, not because I'm fearless, not because the road is clear, but because God didn't create me to live in yesterday. He created me to walk into tomorrow. And maybe that's why you're here today. Maybe you've spent enough time looking back. Maybe you've spent enough time asking why. Maybe you've spent enough time waiting. Maybe it's time to move. Welcome back to Rise to Lead with Doran Anderson. Over the last several episodes, we talked about the dirt that built me. We talked about the cost of leadership and the weight leaders tend to carry, and how God can restore us through life's most difficult seasons. Those lessons matter. Those experiences shape us. Those seasons teach us. But eventually, every leader arrives at a crossroads. I mean, a moment when reflection becomes action, a moment when healing becomes movement, a moment when faith must become a step. Because leadership isn't just about surviving difficult seasons. Leadership is about continuing to move forward after them. And that's what this episode is about. Forward. I've learned something over the years. There are people who are physically present, but emotionally stuck. They're still carrying conversations from years ago, still carrying disappointments, still carrying mistakes, still carrying regrets. And while they're focused on what happened, they miss what God is doing right now. You see, I've seen leaders become prisoners of their past success, and I've seen others become prisoners of their past failure. One keeps talking about what they used to accomplish, the other keeps talking about what went wrong, but neither one is moving, neither one is growing, and neither one is leading because leadership requires movement and movement requires letting go. One of the most remarkable things about scripture is that God is constantly calling people forward. Think about Abraham and Moses, Joshua, David, Peter, and we can't forget Paul. None of them received the plan. You know, none of them were giving every answer. None of them could see the entire journey. Yet they moved, they trusted, they obeyed, they stepped forward. Imagine if Abraham refused to leave. Imagine if Moses refused to go. Imagine if Peter refused to step out of the boat. Their future was waiting on a decision, and often ours is too. One lesson leadership teaches over and over again is this: you will rarely have all the information you want. You see, as leaders, we like certainty, we like plans, we like guarantees, we like control. But leadership often requires making decisions without perfect information, moving without certainty, acting before you feel completely ready. And that's uncomfortable. It always has been, and it always will be. But growth lives on the other side of uncomfortable. Growth lives on the other side of uncertainty. Growth lives on the other side of faith. As I look back over my journey, some of the greatest opportunities in my life began with uncertainty. I mean, career opportunities, the leadership assignments, relocations, new challenges. There were times I didn't know exactly how things would work out. I mean, there are times I couldn't see the entire picture at all. There are times when taking the next step required faith, but I've discovered something. God often reveals direction while you're moving, not while you're standing still. Many people spend years waiting for perfect clarity. Meanwhile, life is waiting on their next step. Sometimes the next step creates the clarity, not the other way around. The truth is, forward is not a feeling, forward is a decision. Most people think courage arrives first, then they move. But that's not how life works. You move first, then courage catches up. You take the next step, then confidence grows. You trust God, then clarity begins to come. The Jordan River didn't part before the priest stepped into the water, it parted after. The miracle didn't happen before the step, the miracle happened after the step. And I wonder how many people are waiting for God to show them everything while God is waiting for them to take the first step. Not 10 steps, not 20 steps, but just one step. Maybe your next step is applying for the position. Maybe it's starting the business. Maybe it's going back to school. Maybe it's repairing the relationship. Maybe it's finally pursuing the dream God placed in your heart years ago. I don't know what your next step is, but I know this. You cannot reach tomorrow holding on to yesterday. At some point, you have to trust. At some point, you have to move. At some point, you have to stop asking why and start asking what's next. Isaiah 43:18 says, "Forget the former things and do not dwell on the past." I love that scripture because God isn't just reminding us about what he has done, he's inviting us into what he's about to do. The challenge is this: you can't fully embrace the new thing if you're still consumed by the old thing. So here's your weekly challenge. This week, I want you to identify one area where you're standing still, one decision, one opportunity, one conversation, one dream. Then ask yourself, am I waiting on God or am I waiting on certainty? Because those two things are not always the same. And sometimes faith requires movement before clarity arrives. If nobody has told you this lately, hear me clearly. Your best days are not behind you. Your story is not over. Your purpose has not expired, and God is not finished with you. There is still work to do, still people to impact, still lives to change, still mountains to climb. But none of it happens if you stay where you are. None of it happens if you keep looking backwards. None of it happens if your fear keeps you from making decisions. So today, choose faith, choose courage, choose movement, choose forward, because your future is waiting on a decision that's going to make your life the best life. Keep rising, keep leading, keep growing. Whatever you do, don't stay stuck. Forward is waiting.